Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Community Unitarian Universalist Church here in Plano, Texas. My name is Reverend Dr. Aija Duelm. I am the minister of this congregation, and I am so glad to see all of you here. Sorry for this really loud noise. It's a practice every time I ring the bell. But that's what we do. We come here to practice many things, practice what it means to be human in this time, in this age. And we are a faith community. We do this together, joined in our faith. Faith that puts love at the center of everything we do. There was a lot of love going in here right to this morning. But we extend our love to when we welcome people who come here, when we work for justice together. We extend love when we simply sit together with one another and offer our care, our listening ear, or our shoulder to lean on. Because we believe that we are all connected. What affects one affects us all. And this is reflected in one of our core values, the value of interdependence. And this is what it says in the printed form. We honor the interdependent web of all existence with reverence for the great web of life, and with humility, we acknowledge our place in it. We covenant to protect Earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality, and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. That is our value of interdependence. And today, on this All Souls Sunday, we join together to lift up our many griefs and hold one another in care and support. In this last month, as a community, we have lost 4 members in 1 month alone, and it is a lot to hold. And there is more that we are grieving, more that we have lost. We're grieving the direction this country is heading. We're grieving the losses we are experiencing along the way, the weird situation with the SNAP, the threats to our democracy, the loss of rights and freedoms. We also grieve our personal losses of relationships, of health, of dreams, and hopes. So I invite you today to be together in acknowledging all these losses and share our care with one another. This community has cared for one another through many years, and we know that we do this because we are connected. What affects one affects us all. For our call to worship, we have words from Katie Romano Griffin, invoking the past, present, and future. Come. Let us enter this space of hope and community. Come. Let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion, and compassion. Come. Let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength and wisdom beats in our hearts. Come into this space, present to the beloved companions who move beside us. Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come into this space and let us worship together. We will begin by lighting our chalice.
Our chalice is lit today by Jan Scott, and the words are by Francis Caplow.
As we kindle this flame, we honor and remember those who have passed into the mystery. Their brightness lives on in our vision, their courage lives on in our commitments, and their love continues to bless the world through us.
Thank you, Jan. Our covenant is the promise we make with one another about the way we will walk together as a community, as a church. Please join me in reminding ourselves of this covenant as we say each Sunday. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another.
As you have gotten to know me, you know that I variate with stories and resources that I bring, and not often you receive things from Christian tradition from me. Today is that exception, because I would like to share another story from the book of Judges. It is also in the Tanakh, not just in the Old Testament, so it's part of the Judeo-Christian, the Jewish tradition, as well as the Christian tradition. This book of Judges was written as a reimagination of Israel's conflictual life. Their great leader Joshua had died. They had entered the promised land, but they had been unsuccessful in establishing, in caring for that land and establishing the God's kingdom on that land. The Canaanites were still there, living there, and were threatening their identity as God's people. So the book lifts up stories of heroes who were attempting to establish a nation as God's nation. And one of the stories is about Jephthah's daughter. And it's probably one of the most tragic stories in the Judeo-Christian sacred texts, because she was sacrificed by her father as an exchange for a military victory, given up as a burnt offering. And this story has left many scholars, many of us, wondering whether this tragedy could have been averted. Did she know that her father had promised to give the very first person that will come to him after he wins the war, the fight, the battle, that will give that person to God? Did she know that? Maybe she did. Could she have pleaded with her father to spare her life? If she did know this is going to happen, maybe she did this as an act to spare someone whom her father thought was expendable for an exchange of victory. Maybe, could it have been that some other people could have spoken up to defend her and spare her? They did that for Jonathan when Saul made a rash vow to kill him. So where were they for Jephthah's daughter? Or where was the angel of God that intervened in Abraham and Isaac's story? We don't know, because there was none of that. What we do have in the midst of this tragic development is that this young woman, who does not even have a name, had courage and asked for 2 months to go to the mountains together with her companions and bewail her virginity. She says, "Grant me 2 months so that I may go and wander on to the mountains and bewail my virginity, my companions, and I. So she went. She went to the mountains and spent the remaining days together with other women who knew her, who knew what it was like to be a young woman in the midst of a violent society, and who in the end will not forget what she had done. And that's how the story ended in the book. These women gathered together for 2 months, crying, laughing, being angry at the injustices, voicing their unfulfilled hopes and dreams, sitting in silence, and sharing their stories. Stories of life and death, of hope and despair, of happiness and sorrow. Our lives are marked with special events that stand out in our memory. We have rituals and customs that help us to highlight these significant times. And when loss and death is at the core of these events, our community gathers around to be present in these times, provide encouragement, support, and strength. Just like Jephthah's daughter went up to the mountains together with her companions, we too come together to honor our griefs, to lift up our losses and heartbreaking experiences that all reveal the immeasurable capacity for humans to love. I discovered this story about Jephthah's daughter and studied it because before becoming a congregational minister here, I was a hospital chaplain. And more specifically, I worked on the labor and delivery unit. I was a women's and infants chaplain. And I spent many hours of my day with families who lost their children, lost their pregnancies, lost their dreams. I was looking for resources that would speak to this immense grief that is more, and this grief is more common than we think. When I first preached at a Southern Baptist congregation, and yes, you heard me, Southern Baptist congregation, I preached on pregnancy loss. And after the service, an African-American woman in her 70s, late 70s, came up to me and shared that she had been in the church all her life. But this was the first time someone in her church talked about her experience of losing a child. And this woman is not alone in this. There are many losses that remain silenced. There are those losses that are more difficult to name out loud or have a ritual for. There are those losses that are so uncomfortable and uneasy to bring up in a regular conversation because you don't really know whether the other person will understand you and is in the place to hear the immense grief that you're carrying. This pastoral psychologist, Pauline Boss, has written a book that she calls Ambiguous Loss. Ambiguous loss refers to experiences that are not associated with death, and yet include a lot of grieving. The grieving process might be more complicated, more difficult. The language is frozen because there is not a definite end, not a moment when somebody has died. Often it leads to unresolved grief and a sense of uncertainty. So imagine the experiences where your loved one might still be physically present, but emotionally absent. such as people who live with Alzheimer's, dementia, traumatic brain injury, addiction, or other mental and physical illnesses that change persons' mind and memory. Or imagine when a person is physically absent, but emotionally still present. Missing persons, divorce, adoption, estrangement due to immigration or some other reasons. And beyond our personal experiences, we could add a lot more things today to this book. The many times our rainbow flag has been stolen, the vandalism in our community garden, the loss of social structure, or the changes that are happening, the loss of our democratic structures, the loss of rights, loss of our sense of stability of our nation. It feels isolating and very lonely to carry grief by yourself. Yet when we open up with others and share our grief, and talk about our losses, then we realize not just how common our experiences are, but how we are connected to others in more than we could have thought. When we share our grief and loss, we discover that we are not alone in our experiences. We feel connection to others like that invisible string of love story was telling us. And it helps us to know that we are so deeply intertwined with others. And in those moments when we come together, almost like being on that top of the mountain, we come together in pain and suffering, as well as in our love and care for each other. We may cry, we may laugh, we might be even angry together at the injustices. When we voice the unfulfilled hopes and dreams, or we sit in silence and just share our stories of life and death, of hope and despair, of love and sorrow. And there is something about coming together and sharing our stories with one another that has a tremendous power to transform. It helps to reconsider the meaning of the experiences. It sustains us in our grief and even restores us. It helps us to face life and reminds us of love that is all around us. And we know this in this community. If you had an opportunity to read UU World magazine about the banners that are currently in our sanctuary in the back, you know that we have come together, supported one another after a difficult experience, and we made it through. It helped us to heal, to recover. The same, we came together for the 5 memorials this month to honor the lives of members that we've lost. We shared memories, stories, supported one another through our grief. And the memories of life allows us to remain alive, to continue to hope while the emotional experiences sometimes feel like a mess. Yet we might find comfort in some unusual places. The sharing in the community allows us to receive care and love and reminds us that there is something beyond us that is sustaining and restoring. And that is what the community is all about. That is what religious faith communities are about, and that is what we here in this community UU Church are all about. Why we come together, join in our mission and work together. We are here first and foremost to offer care to one another, because we know that a caring presence of a community that holds us in a firm yet gentle embrace will carry us through to the place of hope and meaning.
As our worship time ends this morning, it is now time to extinguish our chalice. Please join me in reciting these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May we go forth mindful of all our connections, the invisible strings that connects us to those who have come before us, to those who are around us. May we carry that love and care that has been passed on to us, and may we pass it on to others. Amen.